My parents bought my brother a brand new BMW for his graduation while I opened my gift, a bill for their debts. My mom smiled and said, "It's only fair." I packed my things and disappeared. Weeks later, they called, panicked. "Please, we didn't mean it." I never thought I would be the one to cut ties with my family. I always imagined I'd be the dutiful son, the one who would stick around, help out when needed, and always be there for my parents no matter what. But life has a funny way of revealing people's true colors when money is involved. My name is Fernando, and I have a twin brother, Mateus. Growing up, we were always treated a little differently. Mateus was the golden child, athletic, popular, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, was the quieter one. I preferred books over sports and computers over parties. It's not that I resented Mateus. I didn't. But I always knew that between the two of us, he was the favorite. Still, I never thought it would come to this. We both graduated from college, at the same time on the same day. It was supposed to be a proud moment for our family. Mateus took the traditional path studying business, while I took a different approach. I started working online as a freelancer when I was 16 and saved every penny I could. By the time we graduated, I had a decent amount of savings. Not enough to be rich, but enough to be comfortable. The day after graduation, our parents surprised. Mateus with a brand new luxury car, a sleek black BMW. He was ecstatic, jumping up and down, hugging our parents like they had just handed him the keys to a mansion. I was happy for him, truly, but I couldn't help but wonder, what about me? I didn't expect a car. That wasn't my style. Maybe a watch, a heartfelt letter. Even just a simple, "we're proud of you" would have been nice. But when my dad handed me an envelope, I felt an uneasy pit in my stomach. Inside was a bill. A long list of numbers, amounts, and a final total that left me confused. "What is this?" I asked. My mom smiled as if she had just given me the best gift in the world. "It's only fair, Fernando. You've been working for years. You've saved up so much. It's time for you to help the family." My dad nodded. "Mateus hasn't saved anything yet. He'll need help getting started in life. But you're responsible. You have money. This is just a small way to contribute." I felt my blood run cold. They weren't giving me a gift. They were handing me their debt. They expected me to pay for them while rewarding Mateus with a luxury car, and they actually thought this was fair. I looked at Mateus expecting, I don't know, maybe a little guilt or perhaps a, "hey, this isn't right." But he just shrugged and said, "Come on, man. You always say you don't care about money." That was when I made my decision. I took a deep breath, folded the paper neatly, and slid it back into the envelope. "Thank you for this," I said evenly. "It's a real eye-opener." My mom beamed. "I knew you'd understand." I smiled back, then packed my bags and left. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just walked out. They didn't try to stop me. I don't think they fully realized what I was doing. Not yet, anyway. But that would change soon enough. 2 weeks later, I got the first desperate call. I ignored the first, then the second. By the third, my voicemail was full of messages from my parents, my brother, even my aunt. At first, they were casual. "Hey, Fernando, we just wanted to check in. Call us back." Then they became more urgent. "Fernando, why aren't you answering? We need to talk." And finally came the desperation. "Please, Fernando, we didn't mean it like that. Just call us back." But I didn't. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of pretending nothing had happened. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first. The first week, after I left, I stayed in a cheap Airbnb in another city. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. I had enough savings to figure things out. But my parents, they weren't as lucky. By the second week, Mateus started calling. At first, it was all bravado. "Dude, stop being dramatic. Just come back already." I blocked his number. Then my mom switched tactics. "Fernando, sweetheart, we're struggling. You know we've always supported you. Can't you just help us out a little?" That was rich, coming from the woman who had smiled while handing me a bill instead of congratulations. Then the real panic set in. One evening, while checking my emails, I saw a message from my dad with the subject, "Please read this." I hesitated, but curiosity got the best of me. "Fernando, we're in trouble. We took out some loans we can't pay back and thought we could handle it, but things are getting worse. Mateus doesn't have the means to help us, and you've always been so independent and responsible. We misjudged the situation, and for that, I'm sorry, but we need you. Please at least call us back." I stared at the email for a long time. It was the first time they had even come close to admitting they were wrong. But still, it wasn't a real apology. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me. They were sorry because I had left, and now, their perfect golden child wasn't enough to fix their problems. For years, I had watched my parents favor Mateus, give him everything, excuse his mistakes, while expecting me to be the responsible one. And now, when their choices finally caught up to them, who did they turn to? Me? Because Mateus, The son they had prioritized for years wasn't capable of helping them. I closed the email without responding. A few days later, I got the call that changed everything. It was my aunt. For the first time, I hesitated before ignoring it. I stared at my phone for a moment before deciding to pick up. I didn't know what to expect from her. She wasn't as involved in the drama, but she had always been somewhat of a peacemaker between me and my parents. Fernando? Her voice was soft, almost pleading. Can we talk for a minute? I sighed. About what? About your parents. They're worried about you. Yeah, I said, keeping my tone level. But I think they're a little more worried about themselves right now. There was a long pause. Then she said, please don't be like this. They made a mistake. They thought you would understand. They didn't mean for things to go this way. I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. Taking a deep breath, I asked the question that had been swirling in my mind for days. Aunt Camilla, tell me something. Why did they buy Matthias a car if they were struggling? If they were in debt? How? Is that even possible? How could they think that was okay? There was another long pause. Then finally she spoke, but her voice was shaky. I don't know, Fernando. They always wanted to give Matthias the best and thought it would be a good way to celebrate his graduation. They never imagined you would leave over it. I felt the weight of her words, but it didn't change anything. My parents had always put Matthias first, given him whatever he wanted. And me? What did I get for graduating? A bill. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. She was quiet for a moment, not knowing how to respond. They didn't know how to show you they were proud of you, Fernando. They thought you would understand because you've always been responsible. But they were wrong and they regret it. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. It's not about that. It's about respect. It's about how they've treated me all these years. How they've always put Matthias on a pedestal and expected me to take care of everything else. I could feel anger rising, but I kept my voice steady. They didn't give me a car. They didn't give me an opportunity. Not even a proper thank you for everything I've done. Instead, they gave me their problems, and now they want me to fix them. Aunt Camila was silent for a long time. Fernando, I think they're finally realizing they've messed up. They just don't know how to fix it. Please come home. Let them make it up to you. I wasn't sure if I could. The emotional toll was too heavy, but something inside softened just a little. Maybe, I said. But they have to show me they're serious. This can't just be another excuse. If they really want to fix things, they need to prove it. Aunt Camilla sighed in relief. Thank you, Fernando. I know this isn't easy. Before I could respond, she added, but there's something you should know. What? Matthias called me too. He's been asking if you'll come back. He's not as indifferent as you think. I frowned. Really? He's actually concerned? Yes, she said quietly. But it's more than that. He's starting to see the bigger picture. He's starting to realize just how much you've done for the family and how much he's taken for granted. I didn't know what to think. Matthias, the golden boy, realizing his actions? It sounded too good to be true. But maybe, just maybe, things could change. I still didn't know if I was ready to go back. But something told me this story wasn't over yet. And in our next conversation, I would hear something that would finally push me to make a choice. The days passed as I stayed in my little Airbnb, sorting through my thoughts, still refusing to call back. But then something unexpected happened. It was Thursday evening when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. Fernando? It was Matthias. Yeah, I replied coolly. His voice shook, and there was a long pause before he spoke again. Fernando, I'm sorry, but things got worse. My heart sank, but part of me couldn't help but feel vindicated. What happened? Matthias hesitated, then finally admitted, Mom and Dad, they didn't listen. I tried talking to them, but they're stubborn. They kept insisting they'd manage. But now, he took a deep breath before saying the words that would change everything. They had to sell the car. My chest tightened, but part of me felt satisfied. They sold the car? I repeated coldly. Yeah, Matthias's voice cracked. They had no choice. The bills piled up, and we couldn't keep up with payments anymore. They sold it to cover some of their debt. It's gone. I was silent. I don't know what to say, man. I listened to the heavy silence after Matthias spoke those words. They sold the car. The same car my parents bought for him while they handed me a bill. The car that symbolized everything I had always known, that Matthias was the priority, and I was just the backup, the one they could count on to fix their problems and then be forgotten when they didn't need me. I could have felt sorry for them. I could have felt guilty, but I didn't. Instead, I felt a cold certainty settle in my chest. This was just the beginning of their downfall. And my voice came out harsher than I expected. Matthias was silent for a few seconds. I could almost picture his face, confused, like he had expected me to react differently. They're in bad shape, man. I don't know what to do. They're desperate. I tried talking to them, but they won't listen. They still think everything will somehow fix itself. But it won't, Fernando. Everything is falling apart. He sounded different. No longer the arrogance of a brother who always knew he would get everything handed to him. Now, his voice was filled with fear, with helplessness. Not my problem, Matthias. I could hear his breathing on the other end, unsteady. Don't say that. They're our parents. I laughed. A dry, humorless laugh. Oh, now they're our parents. When I was just the one expected to clean up their mess, you didn't say that. But now that they can't spoil you anymore, suddenly, they're our parents? I know I messed up. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. You only realize that because they can't take care of you anymore. Silence again. He knew I was right. I wanted to hang up, to end the conversation there. But a part of me wanted to hear how bad things had gotten. Tell me, Matthias, what else happened? He hesitated, but then he let it all out. Bills are overdue, the mortgages too. They took out more loans trying to keep everything going. Now the banks are calling non-stop and they don't know what to do. Yesterday, Dad collapsed. I've never seen him like that. He didn't talk to anyone all day. He just sat in the living room staring at the wall. My heart clenched for a second, but I didn't let it show. They have to deal with it, Matthias. I already did my part for years. Now, it's their turn. He let out a long sigh. Fernando, I know you're angry, but if this keeps going, they'll lose everything. Maybe that's what they deserve. The coldness in my voice shocked him, but it was the truth. My parents had always acted as if they were untouchable, as if their decisions had no real consequences, because in the end, I was always there to catch them, but not anymore, and now they were falling. Are you really not going to do anything? Matthias asked, disbelief heavy in his voice. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. They have you. You were always the chosen one, the favorite. Now it's your turn to handle this. I hung up before he could respond. The next few days, the calls increased. My father called. My mother left crying voicemails. Matthias kept trying. I didn't answer. Then came the unexpected visit. It was an ordinary afternoon when I heard loud knocking on the door of my Airbnb. I got up, already feeling something bad was coming. When I opened the door, my Aunt Camilla stood there, a serious expression on her face. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't want to, but something about the way she looked at me made me step aside and let her in. She walked in, looked around, and sighed. They're in bad shape, Fernando. Really bad. I crossed my arms. I've heard that before. This time, it's serious. Your dad collapsed yesterday. He passed out. My breath caught for a second, but I kept my face blank. And? He's in the hospital. My chest tightened, but my expression didn't change. That's his own fault. Fernando, they know they messed up. They're paying for it. But what does it cost you to at least see them? I'm not their bank, Aunt Camila. I'm not their magic solution. I know that. But you're still their son. That hurt. Not because I felt like I owed them anything, but because for a second, it reminded me that despite everything, a part of me still cared. But caring didn't change anything. I looked at her and shook my head. If they want me to forgive them, they need to do more than cry and beg. They need to prove they've changed, because I'm not that kid anymore. I'm not the one who accepts being pushed aside while Matthias is treated like a king. She studied me for a moment before sighing. Then what do you want, Fernando? I stared out the window thinking, what did I want? Justice? Revenge? Just the satisfaction of knowing they finally saw they couldn't use me anymore? I didn't know yet, but one thing was certain. I wasn't running back to save anyone. If they wanted to fix something, they'd have to do it without dragging me into it. Again, she looked at me a little longer, then stood up. So it's decided. You're not going to help. No, not until they show me that they don't just see me as their safety net. She nodded slowly and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she gave me one last look. I just hope they realize it in time, before it's too late. Then she was gone. I stood there, feeling like this wasn't over, because if I knew my parents, I knew one thing for sure. They wouldn't give up that easily. The question was, what would they do now that they couldn't rely on me anymore? The weeks passed, and I moved on with my life. I focused on my work, invested every penny wisely, and little by little, I built something solid. It wasn't easy at first, but the peace of knowing I had total control over my own future was something no amount of money could buy. Meanwhile, my family kept sinking deeper and deeper. I knew this because even though I never answered their calls, the messages kept coming. At first, they were desperate pleas. Fernando, please, just a loan, just until we get back on our feet. Then came the emotional manipulation. Are you really going to abandon us like this? We're your family. And when that didn't work, the insults followed. You're selfish. You've always been cold and ungrateful. I didn't fall for any of their traps. It didn't surprise me. The first person to get ahead in a struggling family is always turned into everyone else's savior. as if the fact that I had built something on my own meant I was now morally obligated to carry everyone else. But I didn't accept that role. I worked alone. No one gave me a hand when I was saving every penny, when I worked tirelessly to build something for myself. No one helped me when I left home with nothing, with no idea what I would do next. But now that I was stable, suddenly, I was the villain for not wanting to support them. The irony was almost comical. My Aunt Camilla was the last one to try to change my mind. She called me on a Sunday night, after months without contact. I didn't answer, but then she sent me a long message. "Fernando, I know you're hurt, but your family is suffering. Your parents have lost almost everything. Mateus is trying to hold things together, but he doesn't have the same resources you do. Are you really going to let them fall like this? They have always been your family, no matter what happened. You could make a difference, but you're choosing to turn your back on them. Can you live with that?" I read the message and stared at the screen for a long time. My response was short. "Camilla, I am not financially responsible for anyone but myself. No one helped me when I needed it. I have no obligation to fix other people's problems now. I hope they understand that someday." I hit send and muted all notifications. After that, the break was final. My family completely excluded me. The messages stopped, the calls disappeared, and the few relatives who once pretended to care about me now acted like I didn't exist. I was treated as a traitor, a selfish person who abandoned his family in their worst moment. If an outsider heard their version of the story, they might think I was a terrible person. But no one from the outside saw the years of neglect, of indifference, the years where I was only a resource while Matthias was the beloved son. The truth was, deep down, my family never saw me as one of them. I was just an investment, and when that investment didn't give them the expected return, they decided I was worthless. The most ironic part of all this, they still believed they were right, because in their minds, I had money. I had made it. So, I had to help. That's how many families work. The first one to break the cycle of poverty is always expected to be the savior, as if simply achieving something meant they were now obligated to share it and take care of everyone else. But no one thinks about the other side. No one thinks about the effort, the sacrifices, the years of struggle it takes to build something alone, and most importantly, no one thinks about whether that person even wants to carry that burden. I didn't. I chose to live my life without giving, into the emotional manipulation of people who only saw me as a walking ATM. And in the end, I realized something liberating. I never needed them, and that's exactly why I succeeded.